Ad Yack.
You're listening to Ad Yack. Ad Yack is the official podcast of the AAF Greater Lehigh Valley Ad Club. Our mission is to inspire creativity and enhance the professional development of the advertising and marketing communities where we live and work. I'm your host, Bill Childs, and I'll talk with artists, designers, writers, directors, photographers, along with those who work in a creative capacity. Our aim here is to serve as a creative resource to help you stay informed, entertained, and above all, inspired. But first, I want to thank ASR Media. We appreciate your support and collaboration. Hey, welcome back to Ad Yack, Season 3. It's nice to be back because I wanted to amp things up a little with the first episode of Season 3, and I'm happy to say that my first guest hits all the right notes. Crystal Durant is a very talented New York City-based graphic designer, DJ, singer, rock show producer, sound designer for Broadway, podcaster, Metalsmith, Printmaker, art educator, pop culture demolition specialist, storyteller, photographer, and activist. As her mom used to say, she's a very multifaceted Crystal. She earned an associate's degree in specialized technology visual communication photography at the Art Institute of Philadelphia and a BFA in metalsmithing along with her art ed degree certification, K-12 in college, from the University of the Arts. She taught visual art in the New York City Department of Education for over 20 years. For the last 6 years, she was a featured singer in New York City's longest-running rock and roll tribute show called F-Bomb, and has her own Who tribute band called These Kids Are All Right, and a very popular Prince tribute band called Pills, Thrills, and Daffodils. She has also performed in a Soundgarden tribute with a host of New York City legends. For the last 7 years, she's been a professional muse at the Art Students League of New York, where she is one of their featured models. Her face and figure have been sketched, drawn, painted, and sculpted thousands of times. There are even a few portraits of her in their permanent collection. She's currently writing an autobiography about her life as a muse and wants to turn it into a TV show. Trust me, this lady's talent knows no bounds. Crystal and I were classmates in a commercial art class in the early 80s at Lehigh County Vocational Technical School. And even back then, I knew she was destined for bigger things. She's made her life a work of art. I was fortunate enough to be able to get her to sit down with me and talk about her early design career in Los Angeles, where she was in the art department at the world-famous Tower Records on Sunset Boulevard, where she had some crazy experiences with Prince, David Lee Roth, Tom Jones, Michael Jackson, Christopher Lee, and other stars, and what she learned about teaching art to kids in underserved schools in New York City. Crystal also shares an embarrassingly funny story about what happened on my first visit to New York City during high school, where I had a Larry David, George Costanza Seinfeld meltdown inside a restaurant over the price of orange juice. This was a fun conversation to have and one that I know you will find entertaining and inspiring. So here is my Ad Yack with Crystal Durant.
Oh my God. I can't believe it. Welcome to Ad Yack, my friend.
Thank you very much for inviting me. This is very special in a myriad of ways. Yeah.
Surreal, right? Surreal.
Very surreal. Very surreal.
So I want to start kind of like where we met. So we met at Lehigh County Votech. I know we were in commercial art together, but did we go through the 10th grade Mo program together? I can't recall that.
What program was that?
That was like with Bruce Silvernell and like drafting and printmaking or print. Like it would have been a program before 11th and 12th. Like we were.
Yes, I did. Yeah, I was there.
We were not together in that. We met for the first time.
No, we were not in the same cohort for that, but I did take all of that. Yeah.
Okay. Did you have Silvernell?
Yes, I did. I sure did.
Bruce. I have been trying to find him. I cannot locate him.
He disappeared off the face of the earth. I started looking too one day, and I was just a lot of my teachers that I had starting with Votech, and just like, wow, yeah.
I mean, he kind of put me on the path. I mean, I always knew I wanted to do something in art, but when I got to Votech and he saw something in me, he kind of nudged me along. He was like, "Woody, you should do this. Like you seem to have a knack for this." And that was kind of for me kind of cool to hear from somebody like him that I respected. So, you know, I knew that I wanted to specialize. I wanted to go into commercial art, you know, for 11th and 12th. And then that's what I ended up doing. And then that's when I met you for the first time in that classroom.
That crazy ass class.
Yeah. Let's talk about that a little bit. Rhonda Botel, God rest her soul.
Hotel hell.
Gary Maurer. But like, just, I mean, think about this. That's 40 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
40 years. That's way before computers, way before the internet, way before cell phones.
Everything.
I mean, yeah, it's as old. And by the way, I still have my toolkit. I still have it.
Really?
The kit that you had to buy, but that was like basically a tackle box.
Yes.
Jeff Oswald painted my name on it.
Oh my gosh, Jeff Oswald. Oh shit.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Oof.
Still have it. I might have to actually like insert a photo here showing that the paint has still held up. He did a beautiful job on it. I don't know where he is. He was another one that I enjoyed being in the class.
Yeah,
with. You know, good. He
was a good dude. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think I finally got rid of mine. Oh boy, because I think I took it with me when I moved to LA. Okay. Yeah, I did. I had it in LA, and then because of freelance work I was doing or whatever, I think it just completely fell apart. I had to bury it somewhere in the Hollywood Hills. I think that's what I did. Yeah. Well,
I think for us, from what I remember, is that we just kind of immediately bonded. I just remembered like having I just enjoyed your company. You know, we sat next to each other because of our names, Childs and Durant. And you know, and you're from Parkland, I'm from Durant, and you know, I don't know what it was. We just had this connection. You know, we bonded over Popeye and Klondike bars.
Yeah.
Right? I'd come in the morning and I'd tell you about the episode of Popeye I saw that morning.
Yes.
And I would like get really into it. I remember being like very passionate about Popeye.
You were super passionate about it because I hate Popeye cartoons. That's what we would talk about. And you would do your level best to convince me about how great they were and what I'm missing out on. And I can't believe you're not watching it. And that loggerheads, that was the beginning, because we'd crack each other up. That's what it was. Yeah.
Right. So that's interesting. So in other words, so I was really leaning hard into the Popeye and not really understanding that you did not like it. So that's interesting. That's probably what, I tend to do that. I tend to not read the room sometimes. And I just like, no, he did this and then he did that and he did this and you gotta let, okay.
Yeah. Right. You were all over it and I was not having it. Oh my gosh.
So we're in that class, right? And we do the sketchbook critiques every Monday morning. I know Rhonda would walk around half the time with like what was it, graphite, like somewhere on her face,
smeared all over her face. Yeah.
She was actually a really good watercolor artist.
Yes.
Yeah,
I do remember that. I actually got her to show me some of her watercolors, and her private work. She had them in one of the flat files in the room. And it was fantastic. She was really, really good. To me, especially my perspective now as an artist and an art educator, the vibe that I'm guessing where she was coming from was like, I mean, how old could she have been then? Like 40s, maybe?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So as a woman, I don't know if she was married. Was she married?
I don't know.
Don't remember.
Yeah.
But as a woman trying to be an artist, even in Little Allentown, Pennsylvania, and having the advantages that she had, I'm going to assume that she probably wasn't selling that well. And it was like, oh, well, I could just, become a teacher and teach art so I can still be in my practice. Mm-hmm. But her heart was definitely not in it. She was not a good educator. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
She was pushing through to get that check. Okay. Now, Gary Maurer, he was a great educator, a really good art educator, because he piqued our interest. He was funny. Mm-hmm. He was personable. He had a really great bedside manner. But Rhonda, no, not so much.
Yeah. Well, that's what I want to ask you about that. I wonder, did you know from like when you were in the class that you were not going to stay in the area? Like, was that?
Yeah.
So you knew that. So that was
I knew that I was leaving I was ready to run off stage at graduation like my hair was on fire and run straight to either here in New York or Philadelphia.
Okay.
I always knew I was never going to stay there. Never.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I always
So
knew.
you went to art school in Philly, right?
Yes, I graduated. We graduated June of '83.
Yep.
And then I went to the Art Institute of Philadelphia,
Okay.
which was in Center City from '83 to '85. Then I moved here for a minute with a boyfriend. And then he went off to Berlin. And then I moved to Los Angeles, and I was there from '85 to '90.
Okay. What were you doing out there?
Well, my goal ever since third grade was to design album covers. That's all I ever wanted to do, was graphic design and design record covers and jackets and everything. And so I was like, well, where am I going to go do that? It has to be Los Angeles. Because, yeah, labels had offices here in New York City, but not like it was in LA. So I went out there completely cold. I had an older cousin who I stayed with, my cousin Gene. He was 9 years older than I am. And he lived in Koreatown.
Okay.
And had a little car, had a little Corvette. And, I was 20 years old. What the fuck did I know?
Mm-hmm.
But I had a resume and I had a portfolio and I knew what I wanted to do. And as a preamble, before I moved out there, I sent letters to every art department, every existing record label, got maybe 3 responses. Oh, thank you, but we're not hiring now. And then, no responses from others, but it didn't matter. I was going out there and I was going to do graphic design somewhere. God damn it.
Okay.
And I wound up at Tower Records doing it. I freelanced for a bunch of record labels, but I could not get a corporate job in the art department at a record label.
Really?
Yeah, it was misogyny and racism, the usual. It was the 80s. They weren't thinking about being progressive or that women could do this job or anything, because the industry was run by, white guys, whether they're racist or not. That's just how it was.
So how'd you end up at Tower Records then?
So I freelanced at Capitol and at A&M and at Chrysalis, doing local promotion stuff, like creating an ad for a trade paper or the newspaper, doing on-site advertising, AKA slapping up posters somewhere, spray painting stencils on the sidewalk on Hollywood Boulevard, whatever. Okay. And so my cousin said, why don't you go to Tower Records? Because that would be an art department job. It's not like working at a label, but you're going to meet label people and who knows. Mm-hmm. So I went there and filled out a resume. I got called back a couple days later. I had one of the weirdest job interviews ever, where within 20 minutes, I met Slash and Apollonia. Really? And got the job. Wow. And so I started on the floor at the classical music department because they had a small classical store across the street. Okay. So I was there for a couple of months and the art department was in the basement of that building. So I got to know the people who worked in the art department. I would bring my portfolio in, try to talk my way in there. And then I worked on the floor at the record shop, the one that everybody knows, West Hollywood on Sunset Boulevard. And so I worked on the floor for a while, and then I worked in the video store on the floor, and then I finally got into the art department. But that took, it was like 3 months or something.
Okay, so did you get to design album covers?
No, I did not. For Tower Records, if people remember, when you walked into a Tower Records store, you would see gigantic, like indoor billboards, they were called. Yeah. So we would get record flats. We worked on foam core with a hot wire machine. Everything was spray painted, not hand painted. Very little was hand painted. And we were in the basement of this building with very little ventilation and spray painting everything. And it was crazy. So I never got to design any record labels, but I did do stuff for bands that was like local advertising though.
Okay. Now, is this the place where I think you might've told me one time where Prince came in and you had to close the store, and just tell me that story.
That was where I first met Prince. So that was when I was at the video store, and the assistant manager, Mike Dampierre, was one of my best friends. And Tower was famous for being open 365 days a year from 9 in the morning until midnight. But out there, a lot of celebrities who didn't want to be bothered would call ahead and say, I'm coming in at 1 a.m., I'm coming in at 3 a.m., I'm coming in at 5 a.m., whatever. And so Prince's people called and said that he was coming in. I'm at home and my friend Mike calls me up. Oh my God, Prince is coming tomorrow. You have to be there, blah. Okay. So I had to be there at 4:30 in the morning. So of course I'm lying in bed, not sleeping. And then I get there and I'm there. It's just me and Mike. And we're waiting and waiting and waiting. He said he was going to get there at 5:36. So we waited and waited and waited. And then at 6:30, and then we're like, oh, this guy's not going to come. Fuck this.
Mm-hmm.
And we were just getting ready to call the contact person and be like, fuck you. And then a red Corvette pulls up in front of the building, and I'm not making that up. And Jerome Benton from The Time was driving. And they both get out of the car and knock on the door. And we were just like, oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow.
And he came in and looked through everything. This was when laser discs. So he bought a lot of Disney laser discs and a lot of foreign films, and a bunch of records. So I think in total, if I remember correctly, it was around $3,000, which was a lot of stuff.
Sure.
And so when celebrities would do that, they would either bring an assistant who would, take it out, or they would say, oh, call this person, pack it up, and they'll come get it. So we're at the register. We rung everything up, and then Mike is like, so how do you want to pay for this? And Prince looks at Jerome and points, and then Jerome takes a business card out of his pocket and just hands it to us, and he's like, call him. And it was the head of Warner Brothers Records. So it was like, what? And got to talk to him, and he was super nice and super funny. Mm-hmm. And he smelled amazing, and it was great.
I'd imagine, knowing, if I feel like I know you would probably be like, you don't strike me as like an overzealous like fangirl. So you probably were like kind of chill, which they probably appreciate and they probably like. So then they're a little bit more like kind of willing to kind of engage with you, because you're not like, no.
That was all inside. I'm stomping on it inside. Right, but also at the same time, they're people with money. That's all. Right. And if they were an asshole before they had money, they're an asshole with money. If they're nice before, they're nice after. Money does corrupt, but people who are at their core, if they're great beforehand, they're great after. And I have a lot of celebrity encounters and celebrity friends who are just like that. They're salts of the earth. Yeah.
Okay. Well, who's the one that's kind of, your best encounter? Who's the one that you the most memorable encounter, or the nicest one, the one that meets all that criteria that you just stated?
Wow. I don't think I can pick just one. I'll say Prince was number one, definitely.
Okay.
Tom Jones was number two, because I got to spend private time with him outside of the store, which was really cool. And Dick Van Dyke.
Oh. And
John Forsythe. And Christopher Lee. Oh, man.
Oh, wow. Oh, man.
Wow. Yeah, he bit me on my neck.
Okay.
So hot. Yeah, Christopher Lee. Okay. It was fantastic. And he was really cool. Like, nobody recognized him. I was the only person who recognized him. And I just kind of sidled up, hey, do you need any help picking out something? And he was super cool. You say
he was looking in the classical? He was in the classical section?
He was in the classical store, yeah. Yeah. And so I was talking with him about Schubert and music that I liked, asked what he liked. Yeah. And then I started asking him questions about making those Hammer films, because I was such a sci-fi horror dork when I was a kid. I read up on all the stuff, like how horrible the contact lenses were, and the suits and the atmosphere and all that. So I was asking him very specific questions that only somebody who looked this up would know. And he was very impressed by that and was kind of taken aback, like, how do you know this stuff? And I was like, well, I read books, you know.
Also rumored to have been British Secret Service.
And I totally believe it.
Oh yeah.
I completely believe that he was Secret Service. Definitely. Yeah.
My favorite movie with him is The Four Musketeers. Well, The Three Musketeers and The Four Musketeers with Michael York.
Yes.
Those guys, the grittier version from the 70s. I mean,
yeah,
so
it was
good.
great.
So good.
He was really good.
All right. So let's switch gears. So when do you become the art teacher? When do you get into teaching art?
Okay. So I was in LA for 5 years. I did not meet my goal. And I had a crazy, insane encounter, which I was like, I can't take it here anymore, and made me come back.
Okay.
So I came back east. I moved back home with my parents for a couple of months to get my act together. And then I went back to Philadelphia. So I was doing graphic design in a bunch of places, and I freelanced at the Tower on South Street that was there in Philly. Right. And then a really good friend of mine here in New York City is an actor and got a job. He was from Philadelphia. So he was back in Philly at the same time too. We both went to the Art Institute. So he was teaching at a summer camp in Philly. And then he got a job on Broadway. And he was saying, listen, I can't do this. You're an artist. I think you'd be a really good art teacher, you know, work with these kids, blah, blah, blah. I'm out of here. So I took over his job, and it was, I don't know, 15 kids from 5 to 18. And I got really excited because this place had money and I could kind of do whatever I wanted. Mm-hmm. So I went right into printmaking because that's my wheelhouse, Andy Warhol and everything.
Yep.
And got all this stuff together, and I was like, oh, this is great. And my mom was like, you need to be an art teacher. You need to go back to school to be an art teacher. And I just thought, what? Because when I was a kid, you know, teachers teach, they don't do. That was like the insulting thing that people would say about educators.
Right, sure.
And because when we graduated high school, my mom was like, you got to go to Kutztown. You got to, and I was like, Kutztown? Are you fucking kidding me? No fucking way.
Amazing now. Are you kidding?
Oh, now it is. Yeah. But back then I'm like, I spent 18 years here. I have to get the fuck out of here. And I'm not going to Kutztown from Allentown. Sorry, not doing it.
Okay.
So she talked me into it. And then I looked at the University of the Arts, which in olden days was the Philadelphia College of Art, PCA. And then they joined with the dance school and became the University of the Arts. And so I was like, okay, I'll go and get my art ed degree. And then I got a BFA in metalsmithing and a minor in printmaking, and did all that, finished it in a 4-year program in like 2.5 years, and decided to come back here to New York. I always knew I was going to come back here. I didn't want to stay in Philadelphia.
Yeah, but did you enjoy teaching?
I do. I love teaching. I love it.
Okay.
But it's the system that gave me an ulcer. It's the system that, you know, the saying here in New York anyway is you're not a real teacher until you have cried in your classroom by yourself, cried in the bathroom by yourself, cried in front of your students in your room. And once you do all 3 of those things, then you're a real teacher. Because you can't function without that kind of release.
Yeah.
And I also chose to teach underserved schools in underserved areas, i.e. Black and Hispanic and Latino kids in the hood.
Okay.
And that's an added pile of shit that you have to.
I do know though that you had success because they're you know, obviously everybody wants the Dead Poets Society experience with their class.
Oh yeah.
Right? They're going to walk out of their class. All the kids are going to stand on the desk, go captain, my captain. But
captain, right?
You know, you gotta realize not all the salmon make it up the stream. Some of them jump right into the bear's mouth, right? But I know that you had good experiences because you've shared those on social media, and you've talked about like how, you know, the kids that remember you, or the kids that you thought maybe you kind of showed an interest in, or said, look, I think you have a talent here. You should pursue this. And they I mean, you have those stories, right?
Yes, I do. I have plenty of those stories. I would have to say overall, more tragic stories
Yeah.
than great. And this is like from when I was teaching K. I taught elementary, I taught preschool, elementary, middle, and high school, but I stuck with high school the longest because it was easier to be like, sit the fuck down and shut the fuck up with high school kids, because they're like, nah. But the kids who I really related to and got through to, and even if they were giving me a raft of shit in the classroom, 10 years later, I bump into them on the street. Oh my God, Ms. D, I wish I'd listened to you because I know my life. And I was like, I told you I was here trying to save your life. Don't be stupid. Just listen to what I'm saying. And yeah, but I've got kids who are lawyers, who are doctors,
Wow.
who are captains of industry. One kid who is a total pain in the ass now has his own screen printing company and does the design. And it's just, that's why you're a teacher. It's not for the money, because the money sucks. You teach because you love the art of it and you love kids and you want them to succeed.
Well, and you want to share knowledge. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
You know, one of the things I think that kind of helped, I do believe shaped me, because I do a lot of presentations to colleges and universities on creativity. That's kind of like my jam. Like that's my topic, creativity. I lean into that. I write about it. I write a column about it. I talk about it. I have a podcast about it. But I remember when we were in Votech, no one ever came to our class that was from the class. Do you know what I mean?
No.
I remember one kid or one guy came in one day, him and Maurer were yucking it up in the corner. And he left, and I went over to Mr. Maurer and I said, hey, who was that? He's like, oh, one of my former students. He's an art director in New York City. And I remember I didn't say this to Mr. Maurer, but I thought to myself, well, how comes he's not coming back telling us how he did it, right?
Exactly.
That would be useful information. Not to mention the fact I'd love to know what an art director did, because I wouldn't have even thought that was like an option.
Oh, yeah.
So years later, when I started doing my own talks, people would say to me, why do you do it? Why do you take off work sometimes? You go and you're not getting paid for it. Why you do it? And obviously I have the first answer, which is, I like to give back, right? That's nice. Okay.
Yeah.
And you go a little deeper, well, I think it's because, if I'm being honest, it's because I didn't go to college. And I feel like when I go and I give these talks, I get to keep a little bit of like my craft. So it's almost like, what you get to give away is what you keep,
Yes.
You want to keep it, give it away. So that's also good. But you know what the real reason is? The real reason why I do it?
Why?
Because nobody did it for me.
There you go.
That's why.
Yeah.
So like nobody did it for me. So I'm going to break that cycle. So I go out to the, and my first time I ever did it was in Rhonda Botel's class. She asked me to come back. I was working at the Morning Call at the time. I was probably only 5 years into my graphic design, copy and layout job. And I went back to the class and it was a disaster. My voice cracked. I was all over the place. I had no structure. I thought that they'll never have me back. Right. And I got back to my desk, and I think this was at a time when email was just kind of probably 96. And she said, the students loved you. When are you coming back to do it again? So that gave me the confidence to want to try it again. Because if I just went off of that first time, I would have never done it again.
Yeah.
So when I went back, I took bottled water, I took index cards, I had a little structure,
Right.
And I did it again, and it was a lot better. But now, I mean, I love it now. So like, to be able to have, all the colleges and universities in this area. I started now doing some down in Philly at St. Joe's to the marketing.
Oh, cool.
I love it. I love talking about it. And if you would have told me when I was in Votech that one day I'd get to be a creative director, first of all, I would not have known what that was.
What that is.
What does that mean? What do they do? Who is that? Where do you go for that? Like, and I love it. It's who I am, because when you're a good creative director knows that they're not the one that has to come up with all the ideas. They just have to provide the environment to allow others to create the ideas.
Exactly.
I'm responsible for, the end result.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I love about it. Cause it is like a form of teaching, it's a form of teaching.
Definitely.
So yeah, interesting. So, okay. So cool. Teaching, then you get to New York City. Now what is Crystal doing in New York City?
So I came back here in 1992, I think it was 92.
Okay.
And I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I was DJing full time pretty much and doing some freelance graphic design here and there. But this is, the olden days where I gigged like 3-4 nights a week, got paid in cash. The rent was cheap and had a great time, and it was awesome. And then I got into the subbing. So I started substitute teaching in 94, I think. Like I went through the rigmarole, showing my transcripts, all that crap, and then started subbing. So I was living in Park Slope, Brooklyn at the time. And those were the days where there was no computer system putting you in, entering or whatever. It was like, you want to be a sub, you have to go to that school, tell the school secretary, give your file number so they can look you up, and then they'll call you if they need you. So I was 5 blocks away from the premier elementary school in Park Slope, 321. And then I was also 2 blocks from another school that was a little bit north of me. And it was literally night and day. So 321, it was all upper middle class, rich and wealthy white folks who sent their kids there. They had trailers in the back for extracurricular stuff. Okay. The pre-K and K didn't have gym. They had body movement class, like shit like that. Yeah. And then the other school I taught at, which had a Black female principal who had been there since 1929 when the building was first built. And it was Black and Hispanic and Latino kids. And it was literally like walking back in time, peeling paint, water fountains didn't work, books were 30 years old, blah, blah, blah. It was crazy. And they're 5 minutes from each other, So that was when I decided I'm going to work with kids who are in disparity, who need to see somebody like me as a successful artist, no matter what I'm doing. And I love, telling people what to do. So so that's how it started. And I worked at a couple of elementary schools, realized that was not my steez. Middle school, fuck no. It's just too much hormone hell. Okay. And then high school, I was good. So I subbed at all these things for years and made really good money subbing and DJing. And all these schools would call me every single day because they loved me, because I would bring in my own art lessons in a bag. If depending on what the class was, and if the teacher wasn't prepped, I was like, I can keep these kids quiet and occupied. And the kids would go home and tell their parents about me. Okay. And the principal called me in one day and he was like, what are you doing that parents are calling me, telling me that you're amazing? And I was like, I don't know, I'm amazing. So I was subbing, bartending, DJing full time. And then one day, one of my best friends who I'm in the scooter gang with, Vespa gang, she called me up. She's a music teacher. She called me up and said, one of the schools in my building, they just fired the art teacher. You got to get down here and get this job. And I'm in my pajamas eating cereal at 11 in the morning, like what? And so I went down there, met with the principal, interviewed 4 times, and then she offered me the gig. Okay. And then I had to go downtown, do all the paperwork bullshit, and I started working there. And I was there for 4 years straight. And then she got fired because that's a whole other mess. And then I went to another school, and that was even worse than where I was. It looked really good, but it wound up being really terrible. And then I started to get an ulcer. And then I freelanced at another friend's school. I came in as a consultant, an arts consultant for this new teaching methodology. And that is when the ulcer really kicked in. And I was there from September until April, and then I quit. And then I did not go back to teaching. Okay. I was like, I can't do this anymore. Okay. And
well, how long did you teach then altogether? All the number of years?
Oh, it's been over 20 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, man. That's a whole career.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't full time, but full time was 5, but 20 years of, 5 years old to 21 years old. Sure. Because here in New York City, if you don't graduate by the time you're 18, and if you don't sign yourself out of high school, you don't get kicked out until you're 21. Okay. Which is a whole other horrible ball of wax.
Let me ask you this. Where do you get your drive from?
My parents, who taught me you just have to stay on your grind. You know, you have to bust your ass, especially in this, you know, racist country that we're in. I remember my father telling me when I was like 7 or 8, he said, you know, you're going to have to work twice as hard to prove that you're twice as better than everybody else, because you're coming in at a deficit. And my mom used to say, there are two kinds of people in this world. There are radiators and there are drains. You need to figure out which one you are and who you're going to be friends with. And then my father said, there are two kinds of people in this world. There are hammers and there are nails. And you need to figure out which one you are and who you're going to do business with. And that has stuck with me. Which is why my own little production thing is called a radiating hammer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it works for every aspect of your life, not just your job. It's your friends, the people you choose to communicate with, the people you choose to surround yourself with, you know, boyfriends, girlfriends, and every relationship. It's really, really important.
Well, let me ask you this then. What advice would you give someone, say, coming out of college now, kind of uncertain where to go, you know, in terms of their, not necessarily the career, but, you know, I know there's a lot of people that come out and want to like leave the area that they're living in, or that they lived in their whole life. What would your advice would be to someone who, you know, might think, you know what, I think I want to go to New York. I want to try, you know, like what would your advice be?
Well, what I told my high school kids all the time was, get the fuck out of New York. And I don't mean go back to where you parents are from, because they're either first generation or immigrants. Like, don't go back to PR or DR or the Caribbean or Trini or wherever you're from. Get out of New York and see the United States. And I mean beyond the Poconos and New Jersey and Connecticut. Go west, go to the Midwest, go south, you know, something. Okay. And definitely go to Europe. Get the hell out of here and go see other cultures and what that's like. Because on a Saturday, I would volunteer my time. I was 6 days a week at that school in Bushwick. And on Fridays, I would pick 5 kids to take with me to go gallery hopping on a Saturday. And these are kids who, it's a saying here, when you hang tough in one borough, it's a planet. So these are Planet Brooklyn kids who never, ever came into Manhattan. I taught kids who did not know that 9/11 happened in downtown Manhattan. And I'm not kidding about that, because that's just how steeped they are in Brooklyn or Queens or Staten Island or whatever. And I remember the first time I took a bunch of kids and this girl was scared to death. I was like, get on the L train, take it to 3rd Avenue. I'll meet you on the corner, you know, no big whoop. And she was scared to death. She was like, why are these people talking funny? What are these languages they're speaking? There's so many white people. What's going on? Blah, blah. Because she grew up in the PJs, you know, lived in her neighborhood, never left it, only to go to school, like 3 subway stops away from her neighborhood. So I tell people, get the hell out of wherever you're at. Go see as much as you possibly can while you're young. Do not get married. Do not have children until you're in your 30s, late 20s, early 30s. I prefer you to not have kids, but if you're insisting on having children, live a life first and then have kids, because that way you will be a better parent. Because after teaching for decades, you know, 15-year-old kids having custody battles, 21-year-old high school seniors with 5 kids, like, please get away from that.
Right.
So, and also I would tell the kids, I mean, college graduates, it's kind of too late, but figure out what you love to do and then figure out how to make money from it. Because that way you'll never work a day in your life. And the working that you're doing is something that you love and enjoy, and won't be resentful, won't be mad, won't be pissed because you're slogging through to survive. Right. So that's what I would say. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. Would the 8-year-old version of you be happy with who you are?
8-year-old version of me? Yeah, I think she would. I think she would be. Because at 8 years old, I knew what I wanted to do. And I've always been very goal oriented. I got that from my father. But then from my mother, I also learned, well, if it doesn't work out, do something else, or everything happens for a reason and when it's supposed to happen. I'm not religious in any way, shape, or form. I do not get down with any organized religions, but I am a person who believes in karma, because I've seen it in action right in front of my face. And I do believe that we all operate on energy and frequencies. And I think that that's not too crazy or hippy dippy, because people know, you've got your inner spidey senses. When you meet somebody, you get a vibe off of them, whether they're 100%. Good or nice or an asshole. Yep. And it's just heightening that in your brain to get it well honed. And there are tons of things that I wanted to do and didn't do it, but it didn't stop me from continuing on or doing something else. And my father was always kind of mad at me because, you need to get a job and work at it for 50 years and get a gold watch when you retire, like that kind of thing. And even in the 80s, it was like, that shit is not how it works now. And it's definitely not how it works now. So I am glad that I call myself today's Black Renaissance woman. I'm very well-rounded because I have explored and tried as many things as I've wanted to do, in bringing it in with my artistic ability. It's like, it's more than just going to a museum and being inspired by somebody's artwork you've never seen or whatever. I love John Singer Sargent, but I'm not an oil painter. But from what he has done with his work, I've incorporated that in my own stuff.
Yeah, but the list of things that you are involved in.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff.
It's a lot of stuff.
It is.
Printmaker, screen printer, musician, singer, art teacher, columnist, sound designer, and then this professional muse at the Art Students League.
Yes.
Which, we have people sculpting you, like creating sculptures of you.
I have people who are painting me. That's good, right?
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Like that one.
I want you to send me those because I want to show some of those. Talk to me about what is that like for sitting for these paintings? How long is it? How long do you have to do it? How did you get it?
Well, it's a job that as an artist and art instructor, I have worked with live models before, obviously, because that's a part of your training when you go to art school. And it's a job that I never, ever thought about having. I never aspired to it. I didn't want it. I didn't, nothing.
Right.
So I found myself 6 years ago at a particular place in my life where I was in a relationship with a man who I thought was the one. And then he broke my heart in 17 places and I was devastated. And I was managing a bar in Greenpoint. Took me forever to fucking get there. Owned by this lunatic who didn't know what the fuck he was doing. And I resurrected that bar. And this chick who was stealing from him accused me of stealing from him. And then I quit. And so I'm just kind of like, I'm bartending and I'm miserable and I'm sad. I don't know what's going on. So one of my best friends calls me up one day and she says, hey, I have an audition tomorrow. Can you come meet me and run some sides with me? Sure. I'll take you to lunch. Even better. But I just got a new job. I'm the model booker at the Art Students League. And I said, oh, okay, that's cool. She said, well, meet me down here and I'll show you around, tell you what I'm doing. And then I'll take you to lunch and we can do this. Okay. So she gives me the address because the name wasn't ringing a bell immediately. She gave me the address and I looked at it and I thought, this seems kind of familiar. So then I remembered when I was a kid, I would spend half of my summers in Philly and half of them here in New York because I had an uncle who lived here. So I was here for Summer of Sam and all that shit. So he was like, this was in the South Bronx where he was living. He's like, there's some art school downtown. You can go for free. Ugh. And I did. And it was the Art Students League.
Okay.
So I show up there. She shows me around. We're sitting down talking. And then she says, okay, I got to go to the bathroom and then we'll go. So here, fill this out, sign this, do that. You got to do your own taxes, blah, blah, blah. And I looked at her and I said, what are you what are you talking about? What is this? And she says, well, I need models. So fill this out, sign here, da, 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 blah, blah, blah. And I said, what? What are you talking about? Well, I had these models, got jobs on Broadway, da, 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 da. I need bodies. So fill this out. And I said, are you out of your fucking mind? Do you really think that at 50 years old, I just turned 50. You think at 50 years old, I'm going to pose nude in front of people? You are crazy. And then she said, Crystal, just fucking fill out the paperwork. I'm going to the bathroom. It better be filled out when I get back. And then we're going. And she walked away. And I just sat there thinking, what is she talking about? And then I thought, well, this is why I live in New York, and I'm going to get some good stories from this. So I filled out the paperwork. And then the next day I applied for a job at after school arts program, and I got the job. So then she calls me up that evening. Hey, I need you to come in tomorrow night for open sketch class. So open sketch means that there's no instructor there, and the class is only 90 minutes long. It's always figure. Figure means no clothing.
Okay.
And it's short poses. So it'll be, 1 minute poses, 2 minute poses, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then it builds to 1 20-minute pose at the end. Wow. So the standard etiquette is when you're in a class, no matter how long it is, 90 minutes or 3.5 hours, it's 20 minutes on, 5 minutes off, 20 minutes on, 5 minutes off. And then the 3.5 hour class, they'll have a long 20-minute break in between. So I'm not sitting rock solid for 3.5 hours straight, but it's a 3.5 hour class. So she tells me this, and I was like, okay, short poses. I know what this means. So I got 2 hula hoops, a child size hula hoop, adult size hula hoop, 2 mop handles, a piece of fabric to wrap around me. I got an elastic band and, and like a little playground ball. So I worked out this whole routine in my head, what I was going to do, 10, whatever. And I bring all this stuff, explain what's going on. She's like, this is great. They're going to love you. So I'm standing there waiting for the class to start. I have everything set up on the model stand, and I'm standing there holding this fabric because that's going to be my first pose. And I'm talking to the monitor. And because I was brand new, when you're a new model and word gets out, then everybody comes running. So it's like fresh meat is here, So I wound up having like 45 people in this class where the limit is really like 25.
Okay.
And there's a minute to go, and I'm talking to the monitor, and then I see this guy walk in my periphery, and I turn around and look, and it was the guy who interviewed me for the job the day before. So I was like, oh, well, this is going to be interesting. So he walks up to the monitor, gives her his ticket, and then he looks. He goes like, oh, who's the model? And I look down because the model stand is 2 feet off the ground. And I look down and I said, hey, and he goes, what are you doing here? And I said, I'm a model here. What are you doing here? Oh, well, I've been taking classes here since I was a kid. I said, oh, okay, that's cool. 30 seconds left. And he's just, staring at me, and everybody's coming in and buzz, buzz, buzz. Mm-hmm. So to break the ice, I said, this is going to be really interesting. And he said, why? And I said, well, you're going to be the first man ever to have the benefit of seeing me nude, but without the pleasure of having sex with me. And the whole class cracked up laughing, and then beep, beep, beep. And then I went into my first pose, and that's how I got started. And then there was a woman in that class who was like, oh my God, you're so great. You have to pose for Sharon Sprung's class. And I don't know what a Sharon Sprung is, but okay. Tell her to tell the model coordinator. And then I wound up posing for her. That was my first long pose. It was 3 weeks, Monday through Friday, 3.5 hours every day.
It's got to be crazy though, when like you go and see like these exhibits, when you go see, there's me. Oh, that's me. Oh, that one's me. Yeah. There's me with the guitar. There's that. Like, how does that feel? That's got to feel like kind of odd, right?
It's odd, and it's interesting. And I'm coming in with a very specific perspective of being an artist and being an art educator. So I'm sitting in this class while the instructor is talking about shit that I've taught, right? And the majority of the students there at the league are senior citizens, because who do you know who could take 2 painting classes a day, Monday through Friday, for 3.5 hours at a clip for $300 each class.
Oh, wow.
Nobody except people who are retired, right? Because they've got the money and they have the time. There are young people there, but it's 10 to 15% under 30, you know, but they're students literally there. The average is 65 to literally 100 years old. So then it's like, I'm Black. They're all white. In my 6 years there, I've seen 5 Black students. That's it. And only 2 of them were women. There have only been 3 Black instructors in the 6 years that I've been there. So the gaze is very interesting while I'm sitting there. And I've encountered students who were mad because I was there, because they didn't want to paint me because I was Black. People who would purposefully do something ugly to make me feel bad. I'm just all kinds of shit.
Some of the stuff though is pretty incredible. Some of the
a lot of it is really amazing. Yeah. And this is a job that I never, like I said, I never thought about. I didn't know that I had the aptitude for it or the talent for it, because it's a lot to be sitting still. And my breathing is so shallow that one time they put a mirror under my nose because they thought I had died in a sketch class. And I'm just basically like sitting and staring at a scratch on the wall across the room, hardly swallowing, hardly blinking. And now I can hallucinate on command. Within like 2 minutes of staring, I can colors start coming and I hallucinate. And, throw me in a box full of spiders, whatever, I can handle it.
It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I can slow my heart rate down on command now. Yeah.
Wow.
It's pretty weird, but it's fascinating. So that's why I'm been writing all my stories, and I'm going to turn it into a TV show, because I think it'll make a perfect television show. Because in theory, everybody on planet Earth has seen a portrait, whether it's Mona Lisa or somebody on their money or whatever. But when is the last time you thought about who posed for that painting?
Right.
And how long they had to sit there, and was it cold? And then you look at paintings like way back where they were doing it by candlelight in some damp castle in Ireland, some fucking where. Yep. Could they eat? Could they go to the bathroom? A majority of the models were women. And there's nothing crazier than sitting and staring and seeing guys like get all sexually excited, which they're not supposed to be doing, because they're supposed to be a very specific artist's gaze. And you're supposed to be thankful that you're privileged enough to have a live model sitting in front of you. And after me holding a pose for 3.5 hours with no clothes on, then you're going to hit on me after the class is over? Sorry, not today, Satan. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. So what are some of the things that, do you just let your mind go blank, or are you thinking about, or is it almost like a form of meditation, or do you have to focus? You have to
it's
focus
meditative.
You have to hold the pose. It's meditative.
I have to hold the pose. I can't sleep. I can't just close my eyes and sit there unless that is the pose.
Yeah.
And it takes very specific talent to live your life and come in there and change your clothes or, wear whatever it is that you're doing for the pose. And then you have to hit that pose exactly the same place every single time. And not just every day, but several times during that class, because you get up and take a break and you have to remember where you're staring, whatever. So it takes a lot of talent and skill. So in the beginning, my first long pose, all I did was rerun my relationship in my head, because that was what was happening at the time, and just working through it because I couldn't afford to see my shrink. And then once I worked all that stuff out of my system, then it became a meditative focus.
That's awesome.
So that's how I can hallucinate and slow down my heart rate. Yeah.
I also wanted to ask you, how did you end up becoming what is it? Is it a city bike ad? Like you were on
the city bike ad. Yeah. So once I started this professional muse deal, one of the girls who works there is this total kookaboo. And she was like, oh, you gotta send pictures out to talent agents and photographers, which I had already been doing. I've been posting for photographers since I was a kid. I was in several Rodale Press books as a child.
That's where your mom worked, right? Didn't your mom work there?
No, she didn't work there. Rodale Press there was a photographer there. His first name was Frank. I can't remember his last name. I want to say Little, but he was the only Black photographer that they had. And he was like the de facto person in charge of diversity, even though it was like 1970, whatever, and that word didn't exist. And so when he got assignments, he would always bring us in. So I'll find the picture because I think it's on my Facebook. There's a picture of my sister and I eating these like homemade carob popsicles, which tasted like dirt. We're supposed to be like, yeah, and just like,
I think I remember seeing that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's a book about riding bikes or being outside. And my mother and my sister are on the cover of that book.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Wow. So I have friends who are actors and actresses, and I got names of places, and I just sent my name out and emailed places. And then this one woman, this agent, called me up and she says, hey, I've got this thing for a city bike ad. It's a lot of money up front. You don't get any resids, blah, blah, blah. And I said, sure. And she told me that it was going to be in a studio, because I was very specific. I said, what do you want me to wear? You know, how long is it going to be? What am I going to be doing? Am I going to be working with other people? You know, blah, blah, blah. And she says, oh, it's in the studio. You're just going to be posing with the bike. Don't worry about it. But, you know, wear something that is, you know, funky, chic, because I love your look, but something that you could ride a bike in. And I was like, okay, jeans and a t-shirt and a leather jacket or whatever. So they send me the address, and it turned out to be a city bike repair shop and hub where they would take the bikes to get maintained and rotate them in and out. Okay. And it was down underneath in Dumbo and on the Manhattan side. And so I get there and I'm like, where's the studio part? And it was just trailers. So I'm looking for the point person. Oh, hey, yeah, hi, I'm Steve. Oh, yeah, it's great. And I'm looking around and I don't see a studio and I don't see a photographer and I don't see lights. I don't see a green screen. I don't see shit. And so then I said, so what's the deal? And he goes, oh, so, you know, pick a bike, raise the seat as high as you need it. We're going to be leaving in 15 minutes. And I said, leaving for where? A studio? And he goes, no, they're going to be shooting while you're riding. And I was just like,
the ad came out great. I saw the photo. It came out great.
And we rode from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m.
Oh my God.
I could barely walk. I mean, when was the last time I was on a bicycle? 30 years before that?
You really need that long to get one, like a couple, really?
It was crazy. There were 8 of us models.
Oh, okay.
I was the only Black woman. There was a young Black guy. There were Asians, Latinos, Hispanics, white. It was, you know, Benetton ad. And so the photographer sat on the back of a bike and was shooting, and then had an assistant riding a bike next to him, adjacent. And then, you know, a dude riding the photographer around. So we're riding down the street and he's in front of us taking all these shots.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
And that photo.
Yeah.
That was literally 15 minutes into the day. And the other reason why it took so long is because it's an e-bike. So it's the kind that gives you a little, if you're going uphill, it kicks in. And so not only did we have to ride for 800 hours, we had to go every place where there was a hill. So it's like, oh, ride all the way to the east side and take those fucking hill bridge things that go to the river. And
oh my God.
Wow. Oh man. Yeah. I was crippled. I couldn't walk. It was nuts, but it was fun. And I didn't, you know, we shot it. They gave us the check. And then I said, well, what's the deal with this? When is it going to be used? Because this was a December when we shot it. And it was one of these weird days where it was like 57 degrees, but it was chilly and it was drizzly, but it was hot and it was whatever. And they said, oh, I think they're going to be used for the springtime because the light was good and nobody would know that it's winter. So, you know, I don't know. We'll keep an eye out and let you know. And then I forgot about it and nobody ever said anything. And then 5 months later, a friend of mine calls me up, or I get a text message and it's me on a bus shelter. And my friend's like, oh my God, what that. And then bing, 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 bing.
Yeah.
And and I was on buses. I was on bus shelters and some paper stuff. Yeah.
So we're getting close to the hour. So I would be remiss if I didn't have you tell the story of the time we went to New York City in high school.
Yeah.
I know you love telling this story.
It's a great story.
This is a story where kind of a Seinfeld moment before Seinfeld.
Very, very Seinfeld.
Involving a
Okay.
glass of orange juice. So don't hold back on this. Feel free to,
Oh man, it was so great. All right.
So go ahead, tell this story.
So we came up here on a field trip. I don't even remember, like, were we here to go to the Met or something?
I have no idea. I don't remember.
I don't remember. Anyhow, we get up here. Yeah, we get up here and it's you and me, and I think maybe Tommy was with us.
Yep.
And
maybe even Jeff Oswald. I don't know.
And Jeff, yeah, it was a handful of us sitting together, and we were in this diner. And well, first of all, it was painfully obvious that you had never been to New York before, or anybody else except me. And so it was all of you getting acclimated to the city and the energy here, and people bumping into you while we're walking down the sidewalk, and all the lunatics and the weirdos and the drug addicts and the hookers and everything.
It was like a scene out of the Deuce.
Yes. And so you guys were freaking the fuck out, and I'm laughing my ass off because I just thought it was hysterical. Like, these poor white boys who've never been in the city before. This is so funny. So we get into this diner, and we had to pay for our own food. Was that it? Yeah, that's why you were so incensed. So we're ordering, and you were gobsmacked at the menu. You could not believe the prices of everything. And the hill you chose to die on was screaming about a 8-ounce glass of orange juice.
Yep.
Because
$3.
Yeah, because you were like, $3, it's just fucking orange juice. And if you could have had a Norma Ray moment, you would have made a sign and protested. And I'm like, will you just shut up? Then don't get the fucking orange juice. Get something else. Get a soda. It's $1.50. I mean, you were livid. And
you remember there's another part of that story. I was also upset that I couldn't eat a sandwich that I brought into the diner and didn't buy there.
That's right.
The guy literally came over and was like, "What are you doing?" I'm eating my sandwich. You can't eat that here. I'm like, it's my sandwich. Like, that's the Costanza. Like, I was like that's a Seinfeld moment. It was like, this is my sandwich. Yeah, but this is my restaurant.
You don't bring food into a restaurant. You couldn't fathom me that.
And that with the $3 orange juice, which now would be like probably an $18 orange juice.
No, they're still around $3.
Oh, okay.
But you get more. You actually get like a Collins glass fill. But
I'll tell you what, I made a conscious effort to, as my daughters were getting older and growing up, I didn't want to wait for them to be 17 until they went to the city for the first time. So we would go up there randomly just when they were like young. We would just go up for the day because I wanted them to get a different experience than what I had. It was a little culture shock when you wait until you're 17 to go to the New York City for the first time. Yeah. So that's when we would go up there and we would just hang out for the day. We just walk around. We didn't have a plan. We would just hang out, just move, get in a cab, go here, go there, and just, they loved it. They always say, like, when are we going to New York again?
Oh, so, that's awesome. Yeah, that's important.
Yeah.
That's very important.
So Crystal, I got to say, first of all, thank you for doing this. Thank you for
having me.
Ad Yack and talking to me. Your life is a work of art. That's all the only thing I could think of is that you did it, man. I'm so proud of you and happy that I know you and got to know you and just watch you just get to do your stuff. I mean, you're amazing. You're just really amazing. You. And the fact that we sat next to each other at VOTEC, shared our my love of Popeye. Yes. And I asked you the one time, I said, "Hey, why did you call me Klondike?" I said, "I never understood what." And then you said, "Childs, do you not remember how you came in railing the one day when there was a commercial about what would you do for a Klondike
bar?"
And I said, "I wouldn't do anything for one because it's just ice cream." And then that became my nickname.
Yes. Klondike. Yes, exactly. Klondike. Yeah. You are so incensed at such a young age to be so put out by these certain things. Very Costanza. Yes. Very Costanza.
Yes. I know Larry David was the inspiration for Costanza, but I think I understood that.
You were your own Larry David.
What's funny is years later, people would, after Seinfeld came out, they would say to me, "You're like George Costanza."
Yeah.
And I would be like, "Yeah, I know. I've heard that before."
Yeah, it was so funny.
So-
This is a really great thing because I'm not kinda. I am the odd person out quite often when I talk about friends that I grew up with, because a lot of people that you went to high school with too, they're like, I'm out of here, fuck everybody, and don't go to reunions, don't keep in touch. And my experiences were just so fantastic. And the shit that I went through growing up in Allentown, being the only Black person where we were and all this. So I treasure my friendships. People who were willing to look past my skin color and treat me as a regular person, I treasure that. And this is very important to me to do, because it's like, yeah, there's a lot of shit, but this also exists, and it's a really fantastic thing. And I'm very happy and proud of you too, that you figured out what you wanted to do and sorted it out, and here you are. You know, you go from copy and paste stuff to this.
You kept me sane, you know, even though I was insane. I think you helped keep me more, like, from going even more insane over, you know, stupid things like Klondike bars and pop.
Well, this is why I'm a good educator, because I can wrangle mental patients, animals, and small children. I'm very good at those things.
I feel like I hit 2 of those.
Yeah, I can talk people down very well. It's a talent. Yeah.
Crystal, thank you again. Really.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Keep doing your thing. You're amazing. You're rocking.
Yeah. Listen to the podcast. Wait for the TV show. It's going to happen.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. Thanks again. Be well, okay?
Thank you.
All right, Ad Yackers. Hope you enjoyed it, because we have many more great conversations planned and guests lined up ready to yak it up. Ad Yack is sponsored and produced by ASR Media. Theme song was written and performed by Dan Ross. Location recording was at JT Norman's Design Studio. Ad Yack is the official podcast of the AAF Greater Lehigh Valley Ad Club. Stay hungry, stay humble. Till next time.
This episode of Ad Yack is rated O for, oh man, that was good.